I want to officially welcome and thank Bill for joining us today. Bill, some of the guys here know about you and Travelability, but do you want to give us a quick rundown about what you do?
Okay, I'll keep it really quick. We've been around since 2007, so that's 13 odd years specifically on accessible tourism. So within that business, we run an accessible travel agency as well as an everyday travel agency. But by now we've got probably one of the best networks in Australia of suppliers, contractors, tour operators around the world. And we can cover your normal destinations, but we also go really offbeat. We've done adventure trips to New Zealand. We've had someone go to China, Tibet and Nepal. Safaris in Africa. So we can cover an amazing amount of possibilities in terms of what people may or may not think is accessible. To be honest, some of those are not what you would call really accessible. So it depends on your propensity for adventure and to make things happen. But it can be done. In addition to that, we run a consulting industry. So we work really, really closely with industry. We've done work for the likes of Tourism Far North Queensland in Cowes and in Cairns doing destination reviews. We've done Bendigo, Ballarat, Phillip Island in Victoria. We've worked with Destination Gippsland. We're currently working with Tourism Australia on enhancing their expert agent program to include an accessibility module and some accessible destination fact sheets. And we're currently working with the Australian Tourism Industry Council on developing an accreditation program for tourism operators. And in addition to that, we probably, as you may or may not know, run a stock image library to try and change the way people are portrayed in the media and in advertising. And I think Pradeep features on a couple of them.
Yeah.
And we try and cover as well, inclusive and accessible sport. So we went to Rio in 2014 to cover the Paralympic Games. Again, Pradeep stars as playing badminton.
Yeah.
That's us in a nutshell.
Oh, that's great. And you've been around for, I want to say forever, which means a long time. And
it feels like it.
Yeah, but you're very knowledgeable in anything that's got to do with accessibility and travel. So, yeah, if anyone has got any questions or they want to engage Bill, he's the man. If you want like an itinerary put up together. I travel overseas and interstate and all that sort of stuff, and a lot of people think about what are you going to do about carers? Do you have to travel with carers and all that sort of stuff? You can if you want, but if you want, you can also organise carers internationally or around Australia to help keep some of those costs in control. So I think that's something well worth noting for people that want to travel and are thinking about, it's going to cost me too much and am I going to be able to, equipment as well. You can find equipment, things like hoist and shower chairs and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, in the main, we can find that in pretty much anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
So good to know.
Which saves a lot of hassle, especially if you're doing international flights. If we ever can do international flights again, but anyway.
Bill, don't say that.
No, it's depressing.
So,
could I get the ball rolling with the question, Naz?
Yeah.
I was just thinking there was a point that was made before, and I might just ask Bill to recap it. That point regarding about maybe individuals with a power chair, if they're working with their OT, maybe just some key points to keep in mind. in particular that 84 centimetres. Bill, would you mind just recapping that in a bit of a summary?
I think that's the on our website, there's a list of aircraft and the various heights. But if you really want to go anywhere in the world, you are sooner or later going to come across a 737-800. There are 4,500 of them flying. That's pre-COVID. But they will be the first aircraft to be back in the air. The 84 centimetre is the height bit, because you don't want a power chair to be put on its side within an aircraft hold. The length's not a worry. There is some airlines that still enforce 130 kilogram weight limit, but that's a pretty heavy chair. Most modern chairs don't come anywhere near 130 kilograms.
Yeah.
But it's that height that's the critical one. If you can get your chair modified or it comes with removable controls, because they do tend to stick out and are precarious and can get broken, that would be the other recommendation I would make in terms of doing that. And finally, the quick release battery terminals if the batteries have got to be disconnected. They're the three things to keep in mind.
Good. That's some valid points. Thank you.
No, thanks, Bill. Now, as restrictions are being lifted, we weren't able to travel interstate and all that sort of stuff. That's being lifted everywhere except WA, I think, Bill. Is that right? So again,
that's lifted too.
Oh, it has?
Yeah. Now, a word of caution, though, and I'm not going to be too disparaging on the West Australian Premier, but
the Republic of WA.
The Republic of WA or the Kingdom of WA. That guy is a bit of a nutcase. So I would say if there's one case comes into Victoria again, that border will slam shut. Book with caution. Yes, it's open. The whole country is now back open to Victorians. But I will say that word of caution. The other word of caution I'm going to throw out at the moment that you may or may not know that's causing an additional difficulty, in the shutdown mode that we're in, most of the hire companies got rid of their fleets. They cancelled their leases and sold their hire car fleets. Right now, one of the cars that we hired the most for people was a Commodore station wagon with hand controls, because the station wagon gives you that extra room for equipment cartage, wheelchair cartage, without the height problems of transferring into an SUV. At the moment, there are no Commodore station wagons available anywhere in the country for hire. That was one of the sacrificial issues from the COVID era. So we're waiting to see what happens there and whether there's a reasonable alternative that has got a reasonable transfer height in for people who want to go and drive a car with hand controls.
Well,
so that's another one just to bear in the back of your mind.
No, good. What about, I know a few months back, we were talking about some of the guys going away for the weekend, and we mentioned Lakes Gippsland a few times. When I know Darren and Barb they had names of a couple of places that were accessible. Do you know anywhere in particular, Bill, around that area where people can go away for a weekend away? Or
not commercially, that would be for a group. There's a few motels that have got their one or two accessible rooms. There is a house in Paynesville, which I think is on your database, Naz, from memory.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I'm just trying to think. It's not coming to mind anyway.
There is a house in Paynesville that's pretty good. If you don't want to go to that area...
Wendy's house is no longer available.
Isn't it?
They're not renting it out anymore because I built the website for that, and it's now just leased out for a long-term lease.
Oh, well, that's a pity because that's the one I was thinking of.
No, Wendy's house is gone.
Wendy's house is someone else's house now.
Well, it was built for Wendy, and she never actually ended up living there.
No. She was the daughter, wasn't she?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, we'll scrub that one.
Okay.
If you want to go further afield, there is a house in the Grampians that isn't bad, Shady Gums. That's newly online. There's an excellent place for a group, if you want to get a group together, in Ballarat. And I've got to think of the name of it now.
In Ballarat, okay.
Yeah, Prima Bella or something. It is a 4-bedroomed, self-contained house that's even got the potential for bunk beds in the garage. The thing's totally flat. There's one accessible bathroom, which is technically an ensuite. But if you had your own shower chairs, I would dare say you could use all 4 of the rooms if you had anyone who's a bit more agile. Or the ensuite can also serve as not an ensuite. It can serve as a communal accessible bathroom. So it's not a bad group destination.
For individuals, another option to look at is renting in the timeshare system, because most of the timeshares have fully accessible units. Like Bright has 2 up there, and they're really excellent. Capri Waters has 1 at Yarrawonga. These are ones that I've stayed at because I own timeshares, regrettably. But yeah, the timeshare network has a lot of accessible units because they had to meet the criteria of the Americans with Disability Act. So that's an option to look at.
Okay.
Primavera is the one I was thinking of in Ballarat.
Primavera. I want to ask Karen. Karen, can I put you in the spotlight now? A couple of years ago, you stayed away somewhere. I remember you had some photos as well, and the place looked fantastic, nice and flat, and it was wheelchair accessible. I can't remember exactly where that was.
It was in Lakes Entrance, Lazy Acres.
Oh, here we go.
Acres.
Lazy Acres.
Yeah, yeah.
So we've actually, I mentioned before, talked about, spending a weekend there, some of the guys, and we knew Barb done some homework and she did name a few places. I'm not sure if Lazy Acres was one of them, but that place was pretty good, like no issues at all with access.
Well, I must admit, the only thing is the room at the front was like a double bed, so it was quite high to get onto. At the time I wasn't using a hoist or anything, so I went into another bedroom and got on the bed there. It was a bit awkward, but see, I haven't really up till now had carers or anything or equipment. But like even a couple of years ago, for me, it was a bit awkward, but like I said, I didn't have equipment or carers to help. The bathroom was fine, and the toilet, and like they've got like a kitchen sort of area, and it's really close to the shops and the beach and everything. But yeah, I suppose it was just, well, personally for me, the bed was just a little bit high in the main bedroom to get up on.
Okay.
And
so
yeah.
Lazy Acres, they advertise themselves as wheelchair accessible?
Yeah.
And is it like a house, like a 2-bedroom house, or?
They've got a whole lot of cabins in. It's quite a big block of land. So it's sort of off the main drag of Lakes Entrance, probably the next street back actually from my memory. And so it's a big block of land, and they've got like cabins. So the accessible one's got a ramp. So it's like 2 bedrooms, got a lounge, a small lounge, kitchen, and sort of a bathroom. a bigger bathroom. But it's, yeah, like they're log cabins, I suppose would be the word.
Oh, nice. And
Yeah.
was it just one of their cabins that were wheelchair accessible, or they
Yeah.
probably got it?
Yeah, I think there was only one.
Just
Yep,
one? Okay.
Yeah.
The caravan park at Painesville has one accessible unit. I don't know how good it is. I haven't been into it, but I've just seen it listed as accessible. I think it's a 2-bedroom.
Okay. What was it? A couple of years ago, I stayed in Phillip Island. There's a big, it's a bit like a caravan park. So huge, I don't know how many hectares, but they've got cabins on there. And they had wheelchair accessible ones as well. So this was, sorry, I just had to hang up on that. Yeah, so this one wasn't on the water itself, but it was huge property with lots to do, and not, you had to drive to the water, but they had wheelchair accessible cabins there. And it's just trying to describe it. So it was probably about 5 k's heading into Cowes on the right-hand side. So I think it was like the Ramada Resort or something like that.
I'll just come this way. I don't think
It was a pretty good place as well. Anyone else? Does anyone else know of local wheelchair accessible destinations?
Don't forget, if you want a group, there's always Howman's Gap too, where a group can go, which is only about 5k out of Falls Creek. So if you want an alpine adventure, that's administered by YMCA, I think, and DWA.
Yeah, that was recently built. Bill, was it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a pretty new good facility. Again, probably better for a group stuff. If anyone wants to get a group of mountain hand cycles together too, the RACV resort at Creswick, the RACV golf field's got 6 accessible rooms, and it's also right on your mountain bike trails and lock-up storage for hand cycles.
Oh, wow.
That sounds interesting to me. I'd like to go on a mountain bike. Wonder how accessible is it for a quad? Like, I have a bike that hooks up to my wheelchair. Would that be on those trails?
The trails are pretty good. Now that's subject to weather, but they're right out the back door.
Ah, that'd be fun. Where was that again?
That's at Creswick. So it's RACV Goldfields.
Right.
And they've also got plenty of parking there too. So if you're taking it up on a trailer, they've got trailer parking and all sorts of things. So that was mainly built for people bringing their golf buggies up. But so it's pretty well equipped for our purposes, whether by design or not.
That sounds interesting. I'll look that up.
There was another place in Herritville. Now we're talking about the snowfields. A place called AMG, Able Management Group. Does anyone know that place?
That's getting old. I haven't been up there for
Yeah.
It'd be 20 years since I saw that place. I don't know what sort of state it'd be in today.
Yeah. Last time I was there was probably about 10 years ago. And it's a very old house, built in the late 1800s. Of course, it's been modified since then, but pretty much it was I think a 4-bedroom house with some other self-contained units. Part of it
was.
And it's wheelchair accessible. But the good thing about it was they had activities. So if you wanted to, use a hand cycle, we were talking about it before, they have hand cycles where you can borrow off-road buggies that are hand controls as well, and also for the snow. So in winter or summer, that you can do activities as part of them as well. No questions from anyone? What
I don't
about,
know.
what about some interstate stuff? Anyone interested in going interstate or has been interstate?
I have not.
Yeah, you haven't done, Mark?
No, I haven't gone anywhere.
Yeah. So in New South Wales, you probably would have heard about the place there. I'm just trying to remember the name. It's a resort built for people with spinal cord injuries.
Yep, heard of it.
Trying
You
to
told
remember
us
the-
about it, Nars.
Yeah.
You've mentioned it, yeah.
Anyone remember the name of that place?
No, I've been up. I went up there for their first birthday.
It's in
Oh, okay.
Coolaroy.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's right.
Sargood, Sargood, no,
So
Sargood.
good. That's it. So good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so good. So that's a fantastic place. That it's built just for people with spinal cord injuries. You can actually get it on your NDIS plan too. NDIS, you can get respite for a total of 28 days. So they'll pay for your accommodation activities down there. They've got a gymnasium, laundry facilities, whole bunch of stuff. If you want to go hand cycling again, if you want to go snorkeling or diving or surfing, they can arrange all that sort of stuff.
And those rooms are pretty well decked out. So even if you're looking at different ideas for room setups, it'd be worth checking that out as well. Hey.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. So that's pretty, everything's automated. So not an issue at all. You know, the bathroom, everything's fantastic. Electric beds. If you want a hoist or a commode, it's like you're at a restaurant. They give you a menu that lists all the different types of shower chairs and commodes they've got, and you choose which one you want. You know, if you need carers, they've got carers in-house as well.
Oh, really?
Where was this again?
In Collaroy in New South Wales, so North Shore,
Northern Beaches.
Northern Beaches.
Collaroy, Northern Beaches, New South Wales.
Yeah.
And spinal cord injury takes preference, guys. So, yeah. But
Oh.
they're
Well,
definitely,
now,
they're busy.
caution, yeah, not only does it take preference, their charter or their charity status prevents anyone other than spinal cord injury.
Yeah.
using it.
Ah, good.
Yeah, so that's the club for us.
Yeah.
Now, talking about NDIS, how do you get that covered through? Is it for Sargood? How does that work for people?
Yeah, so what you got to ask for is respite. You got to get respite on your plan, and everyone I know that's got it has just asked about it, has asked for it, and has got it. So apparently you're eligible for 28 days per year. The facilities are great. I didn't mention it's right on the water as well. You know,
Right on the beach. If you look up our website, travelability.travel, and search for Sargoods, you'll find our article on it.
And
But
Karen,
then-
if you wanted to know more information about, how to include that, if you ring them up, that'd be really helpful and give you the information.
Yeah. And there's all sorts of activities from surfing, fishing, canoeing, mountain biking.
Travelability.com.
Yeah. It's fantastic place. I went there. I've stayed a few times there, and yeah, it's just it was like no expense spared. You know, that's how it is. It's got a huge balcony with a barbecue, so you can do your own cooking there if you want.
Naz, are you aware there's a similar facility now being built by Spinal Life Australia in Cairns? On the Esplanade. So it's another one that's open to people to book.
Oh.
In Cairns,
Is that built, Bill, or still in the construction?
No, it's built and it's open.
Bill, yeah. So
Fantastic.
what's that place like, Bill? Can you give us any information on that? Is it similar to Sargood?
It's similar to Sargood, slightly smaller. I think there's only 12 rooms from memory.
Okay.
It's got a pool, and there's a raft of activities you can do up there that they can organise, including sailability on the Cairns Harbour. You've got all of the other stuff that's generally available in Cairns. Cairns is a pretty accessible destination. And it's right on the Esplanade, so it's dead flat from there right back into Cairns. It's right at the end. Did anyone know Cairns? It's right up the end of the Esplanade, almost level with where the Botanical Gardens are.
So does that mean you can push to the water? So is that near
It's
the water?
virtually on the water. It's
Right, excellent.
and then there's the boardwalk that goes right along the water. It's dead flat from there, right into town,
Wow.
into the main lagoon. And
So what's it called, Bill? What's the name?
it's Spinal Life Australia Cairns facility. I don't know whether it's got a separate name, but if you look up Spinal Life Australia, and they're really helpful up there.
That's interesting because that's where I was intending to fly to.
Beautiful.
Cairns.
Yeah. Okay.
So Cairns is good. If anyone needs the Eagle Hoist, there's an Eagle Hoist in Cairns.
Can you explain what that is? Bill, Eagle Hoist, a lot of people.
And Eagle Hoist, anyone who has difficulty transferring into an aircraft seat, the Eagle Hoist it's a glorified patient hoist, but on wheels. So it'll pick you up out of your chair with a harness at the aircraft door, wheel you down the aero bridge and into the aircraft and lift you into the seat. So none of this transferring onto shaky little aisle chairs, or for those who can't transfer into an aisle chair.
Mm.
Yeah, that's great. I found the Spinal Life. It's called a Healthy Living Centre.
That's it.
Yeah, let me just give me a moment. I'll share my
was
screen.
it called?
Healthy Living Centre.
So I don't know if I'm sharing
There
my
it is.
screen at the moment.
Yeah.
So that's the property. It looks like the front of the building there, but so you can see it's a large property. I don't know if there's what facilities there are.
Nice.
Yeah.
I go.
Station.
I see why not.
Oh, so there it is. Yeah, right by the water.
Yeah, right by the water.
And get paid.
Got inbuilt hoists.
Yep.
Electric beds.
So it's very similar to the SAR Goods facility.
Nice.
Bill, on a
Sorry,
side
Bill.
question. I'm a TAC client. Have you heard of TAC funding those respites to those
This is a different one. But sorry, go ahead.
hotels?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no, but it depends on how you phrase it.
Yeah, understand.
That's like with NDIS, I think.
Yeah, it is a little bit. We're learning the tricks. Let me put it.
Tell me. Oh, wow.
So that's about 1.5 kilometres from the thing. Yeah, I took that.
Oh, did you? What is that a photo of?
That's the can you go back? That's Skyrail.
Oh, so okay. So a bit like what's the place in Mornington? Arthur's Seat?
Yeah, a bit like the Eagle.
Yeah.
Okay.
Skyrails have been there a bit longer, so it hasn't got the level entry. They stopped the gondolas and put that ramp down. There is a weight limit on those. So for power chair users, Dane's chair was probably borderline with that attachment underneath it. Now,
Okay.
by the way, I was talking earlier about batteries. That is one device that has a problem with it because the batteries in that thing, if anyone's got one of those, are too big. So when Dane went to Hawaii, we had to believe this or not, we had to have the batteries shipped in advance to Hawaii and then shipped back home. So we could freight them, but we couldn't physically put them on the aeroplane with his device. He had to order a smaller one.
Okay, so if you've got one of these, you
That's
probably
that's the ZX1.
smaller batteries.
Yeah, I think, yes, it is the ZX1. Now, the standard battery in the ZX1 is over the milliamp limit on
Yeah.
lithium-ion batteries.
15 amp hour battery.
Yeah, I think you can only have a 10.
The maximum is 9.5, 10.
Yeah,
Okay. So could you buy a smaller battery for this?
that's what he did. And we
Yeah.
shipped 15 amp hour batteries
Ah, right.
over to
Okay.
Hawaii to the hotel, and then we shipped them back after.
Okay. Fun fact for you, Bill. Colin, who's online with us here, he done the prototype of this, and whoever this company that's building them now stole his idea. So we won't go any further than that because keep bringing it up and Colin probably.
Yeah, but I've got one myself. I've got a Spinachy ZX1. They're brilliant.
They're great, aren't they? Yeah, I trialed one, and for people that don't know what it is, it attaches to your manual chair when you want it to. So you can take it on or off anytime you want.
And it lasts forever. I spent a week in Cairns with Dane when we reviewed all the itineraries that were available prior to the new centre opening. So we came up with 15 days worth of itineraries that you could potentially do. And that thing, I was amazed where the hell it was taking places that it shouldn't have gone, really. And it seemed to last forever down some very long boardwalks through the Daintree.
Yeah, because it's very lightweight. It's only a total of 40 kilos.
Yeah.
So it's car transportable as well.
Yeah, no, it's a really good device for a trip like that. So again, I'm going to encourage everybody, if you're thinking about power chairs and you're thinking about traveling, have a look at all the options that are around in terms of power assist that make traveling easier, rather than necessarily just going for a fixed traditional power chair.
Yeah, the only consideration is it's $15,000.
Yeah.
Not cheap. That's worth double the cost of my car, if you want to know.
Yeah.
So,
but again, it depends on how important traveling is to you and so on, and how much you can get NDIS and the likes to fund some of this if you ask the right questions and you specify the right stuff. Because a decent power chair is not cheap either.
No. Well, so just while we're having a look at that, I'll put the website of Sargood. And by the way, I'm not supported by either organisation, even though I'm sort of showing it off. But you can see some of the activities that they do. So you can play golf, go snorkeling, beach wheelchairs. What else I'll go through? This is
and see, from the surfing point of view, you're really close. There's the Collaroy Surf Lifesaving Club, that building right there. They've got beach chairs and matting and everything else that supports Sargood. So it's right there.
Yeah, it's a great location.
Have you got a shot of the kitchen, Nash?
Let me see.
Because the kitchen's got height adjustable benches and all sorts of things for you if you want to do your own cooking and all that sort of stuff. It's really well set up.
Okay, so there's the property. Oh, yeah, here's the kitchen.
Yeah, there's the height adjustable benches. You can see they're electrically adjustable.
Go back. There we go.
Wow.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And they've got everything you need, you know, like coffee machines, oven, fridge. This doorway leads out onto a little balcony. And the lower level, there's a lower level where there's a larger balcony where you can have a barbecue and all that sort of stuff. So there's
Yeah.
So there's an accessible gym as part of the facility as well. And there's like a rumpus room where you can play billiards, play your PlayStation and all that sort of stuff.
Is it very expensive?
It's not cheap. The best rooms are on the front there, so those rooms you can see with the balcony that put over the beach is about $650 a night.
But you got to remember that you can get this funding covered by NDIS if you ask for it. I'm just trying to see if there's a picture of the rooms, but the rooms are pretty much, they're massive. You can get a twin room, like 2 beds or 1 bed. It's got electric beds, ceiling hoist.
Have you been there, Nas?
Yeah. And
I'm I'm just, while you're talking, Naz, I'm just looking to see whether I've got a picture of the rooms up on.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, that'd be good if you can find it. I'm just trying to think.
Yeah, Bill.
And
Yeah.
everything's automated. So you get like an iPad where you can control the curtains, the TV, the air conditioning, the lights, just through an iPad that, you know, you can take anywhere you want. So easy.
Hey, Naz, just real quick. I saw funding assistance for NDIS. What about
Yeah,
Oh,
that's why just my question.
what
Okay,
about
so,
if you're THC?
so here's a picture of the room. I'll go back in a sec. We'll just have a look at these photos. So these are the, that's electric height adjustable bench there. In the bathroom, it's the same thing. That counter is also height adjustable.
And I should go back to the bathroom for a minute, Naz, if
That
you
one?
can.
Yep.
See the bars on the toilet and the commode bars, they are all on a railing system. So part of the menu of choices, you determine what bar configuration you want. So they're not fixed. They will come in and set the room up exactly how you've asked for it in the menu of services. So if you don't want to, if you don't want that chair with the armrest on it, you can have the armrest taken off it. If you want a straight bench, that bench gets configured again off the menu of services for things that you want.
Yeah, that's great. You know, they give you so many choices.
And if you've got some, if you're going up with a group and you've got some able-bodied people with you and they've got their own room, none of that's in there. So it just looks like a normal hotel room. It's just all taken out. And they wouldn't know the difference between a luxury hotel room and an accessible room. Very clever design.
So I'm just going back to what Mark saw before about the NDIS.
Go to funding assistance.
Funding assistance.
If you go to the funding assistant tab,
tab.
we also have a foundation.
That's too
aren't
clever.
eligible for NDIS.
Kelly, that's too clever to do it that way. I thought I'd just make it. No, where is funding assistance? NDIS funding. Here we go. Maybe funded through the NDIS.
Yep. And then if you go back to the funding assistance tab,
Yeah.
go to the Sargood Foundation funding.
I've just posted a link, by the way, in the chat to our article on it. So
Thank you.
Okay. So let me stop sharing this screen now so we can see each other. So everyone can see that link that Bill posted. So this is on his website. There's information on there. Can everyone see that link? If you want, you can have a look or copy and paste it. Otherwise, I'll bring it up. You can't see it, Mark?
I can't see a link.
No. Let me.
I see Pradeep.
Yeah.
You see Pradeep?
Yes. You've probably got to open. You've got to open chat, I think, to see it, don't you, Naz?
Yeah. So down the bottom, Mark, you've got some icons. Mute, video, security, and one of those is chat.
Come look at this thing.
But what I'll do in the meantime, if I share my screen, and you'll be able to see. Right, so which screen can you see at the moment, you guys?
I see something that looks like a computer screen, and then about in the middle of that is a big white square. It says settings, VPN.
Oh,
and
yeah,
VPN.
okay. All right, no worries. I'll let's increase this window.
I've forgotten already what we're looking for. Oh, yeah. Thank you.
No, my window's not maximizing for some reason.
Or
So I'm not-
THC or
It
doesn't
really
mention
have a
TSC, does it?
No, we have just,
NDIS.
and you speak with your local coordinator to discuss what's covered. I'll have to ring up the.
my chat, so I've lost that link as well for some reason. I can't see it.
Way to go.
I don't know, it's disappeared.
Yeah, Bill.
Yeah.
If you can tell us, can you tell how can I tell to India's planning meeting to go to interstate? Just I want to do this one, to stay in accommodation and all. Can you tell us a hint to? Can you tell like how can I tell them to get the India's funding?
There are three options under your NDIS funding.
Yes.
A place like Sargoods will fall under rehabilitation and medical physio type stuff if you elect their full package with their services. As Naz has already said, you've got the respite provisions, and you've also got a social interaction category.
Okay, I don't need more.
Yeah.
So depending on what it is, don't forget the social interaction category.
Interaction category, okay. Then you are telling, then we can ask them, we need to go to interstate, we need to camping, we need to go to the, just like that, we need to, okay.
Sorry guys, I've got Bill's website page up where he talks about Sargood on Caleroy. Can you see my screen now where?
Yep.
Yeah, so you can see the link there. It's travelability.travel/blog. But if you can't find it, you know that email that I sent out inviting you to this meeting? There was a link in there to Bill's website. So you can just click that and find your way to this.
Now, Naz, before we leave, okay,
I'll go back. I'll go back.
Just on under the travel tab.
Yep.
Just go up to the travel tab for a minute. Yep. Under there, you'll see destinations down near the bottom. There's a lot of articles and all sorts of things. But you're asking about local. There's a full guide here to Ballarat and Phillip Island.
Yeah,
which includes accommodation as well as things to do. So if people are interested. As well as there's a fair collection of Parks Victoria's stuff that we did for them back in 2012, which I don't know whether you've copped onto, most of which has been deleted off the Parks website at the moment. So if you're looking for somewhere to escape, I've put them back up on my website at the moment until Parks figure out what's gone wrong with theirs.
Wonder why they took it off, but talking about Parks Victoria too, Bill.
Yeah.
I was just going to say they've got purpose-built wheelchair accessible cabins as well, don't they?
Yeah, Wilson's Prom. The cabins are getting a bit old.
Okay.
The cabins are good for groups of 10 to 12, but they've got that new apartment that can be configured as either a 1-bedroom or 2-bedroom apartment. It's only about 2 years old now, so it's good.
You'll be hungry.
I suspect that'll be booked out now until probably end of April next year.
Yeah. That'll be pretty popular, but, if people are interested in that sort of stuff, you might want to book to next year if they allow it.
They are going to do some work down there too. They are going to put a changing places in for day visitors. And I believe they're going to build 3 or 4 accessible campsites down there, which will be interesting. So that will probably be online for next summer.
That'd be great. Well, any other comments, any questions around that?
Can I make a comment about people going to Cairns? It looks a really great location when you look at it online. I've been there pre and post my injury, and my injury, I'm a walking quad, incomplete quad, but the temperatures are high for so much of the day, and if you're there in the summer months, the humidity
don't do that.
is overpowering. So you really need to work up to being able to take the high temperatures constantly before you head up there.
And don't go outside May through to end of September.
Yeah, so it's, even as before I had my injury, I found it challenging coming straight from Victoria. And if people are going to do it, I'd suggest they sort of work their way up the coast and get acclimatised and know what their bodies can cope with or not.
So what's a good time to go to Cairns then? What's a good month?
June, July, August.
Oh, okay.
Middle of winter.
Oh, really? So when, like all Victorians do, go up to Queensland.
Do not go, and I can't stress this strongly enough, do not go December, January, February. You will die. Unless anyone's been to Florida in June, July, August, then you'll be right.
So it's a good idea to know what the temperature is going to be like while you're there before you do your planning.
Yeah, and look, November can be bad as well. I don't know whether anyone knows much about the tropics in Australia.
Yeah.
Once you get into November, it gets dry with increasingly humidity and no relief with no rain. So you get build up to the monsoon, and that's probably, for a Victorian, that's oppressive. Once you get post Christmas, you get the rains, but you get the monsoon, so it's humid and wet. At least until the end of February, and sometimes not till the end of March. So middle of winter's best time.
Florida. When you're travelling out to Europe, going via Dubai sounds great, but when you get out of the airport and you find it's 52 degrees, it can be fun.
An alternative, by the way, to Dubai these days is to go with Qatar via Doha. Because Doha, it's still 52 degrees in the middle of the flaming day, so you don't go out in the middle of the day. But it's a smaller city. It's not as overpowering as Dubai is. Nighttime, you can go through the Souk Waqif if you want the authentic market experience, but you do that at night. Plenty of places to eat. If you want to get out of the heat in the middle of the day, the Museum of Modern Islamic Art is fully air conditioned. You could spend the whole afternoon in there.
And Doha is reasonably accessible to get around, Bill?
Yeah, reasonably accessible. It's a much smaller city, so if you stay in the centre, there's plenty of cabs. Most of the buses are hop-on, hop-off, wheelchair accessible. And there's some tour operators starting to develop some real product, because remember, Doha's got the FIFA World Cup coming up, and they're on an accessibility bent. 2 years ago, I was at an Accessible Doha conference where they were really setting some pretty stringent targets on getting the city really, really accessible for that FIFA World Cup event. So, yeah, but it's less daunting than going to Europe. Of course, the other alternative now, which is quite good, especially for people who've got difficulty breathing or don't like cabin pressure with circulation issues, is to fly to Perth and fly straight to London direct on the 787. Because the 787 is pressurised to 5,000 feet, not 8,000 feet. Much higher level of humidity in the aircraft and much easier for power checks. So the Perth-London direct flight's not a bad option if you want to avoid the Middle East.
Is it only London direct? Do they go to Frankfurt at all?
No, it's Perth-London.
Yeah.
What about some international travel? We'll talk about international travel and also touch on cruises as well. I was speaking to Bill last week about cruises. Apparently there's some cruises around Australia that really don't go to any particular destinations. They might be going on at the moment.
No, that's been pushed back 3 months now.
Oh, has it? Okay.
Yeah, it's the 28th of March because they're not letting the cruise ships in.
They're not, okay. All right. Then before we strike across against that one, I want to just get Mel to just talk about his experiences he's done quite a few cruises, including, was it a 90-day or 100-day cruise a while ago? And it'd be great to
103
hear
days.
your experiences about access and all that sort of stuff as well.
Okay. We've done quite a few cruises. The first one we did was around New Zealand, and that's a really good one to get the hang of it and to see whether you like it or not, or you can bear being locked up in a cabin. That was good. And the bathrooms are great, and the rooms are good, and they really look after you if you don't get COVID or something or other. But yeah, we've only had really good experiences. We did the Alaskan one, which was a fantastic cruise out of Vancouver there. And then when we came back, we travelled across, we hired a car and drove to Calgary through the mountains. And that was fantastic. We flew to Dubai and then to Egypt. We did the cruise down the Nile, which was fantastic. Wheelchair accessible cabin. Service was really good. Although I don't know how OH&S goes over there because they carry you everywhere. You get somewhere and all these 4 little Egyptian fellas materialise and they carry you off the ship and up the staircases or whatever and load you onto the donkey carts. Or so it's good fun. And the Mediterranean is good and very useful, but cruising is fantastic. We went on the 2016 World Cruise. It was for 103 days and we stopped at 30 odd different countries and it was magnificent. Yeah, there again, not too many outings provided by the companies, by Princess or whatever. You've
Is
got
that when
really
the boat
source
docks,
your own.
Mel?
So what was that, sorry?
So was that when the boat docks, you mean, activities?
Yeah. Yeah, and there's a couple you've got to be careful of. It might say that it's wheelchair accessible to get off the ship, but if it's a working port, you've got to make sure that you've got someone organised to take you off, either your own outing or a taxi or a wheelchair accessible vehicle that can come and pick you up, because you can't just sort of wheel off through the port and go out, because you've got great big machinery roaring around and unloading containers and so on. We managed to get off in a couple of those and dive around the back and got out anyway. But I had the Baytech with me and that was absolutely priceless. And it's
Sorry,
we did 36.
Who did you have with you? Who was that?
A Baytech attachment or Bartech that goes on the front of the wheelchair, other than
You know what that is, Karen?
Oh, is that the extra part you
At
put
the
on
front.
any wheelchair? Baytech?
Yes. Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
And in Boston, I did 36 Ks on it one day, and it was absolutely magnificent. But cruising, we found really fantastic. If you can put up with being in a cabin, but now the World Cruise we had an inside cabin, which was pretty terrible, but they didn't have any balconies or window cabins, so they had one. But now the new ship that's doing it from Australia has got wheelchair accessible cabins. It's fantastic. There's the Baytech, yeah, absolutely fantastic. It's changed my life, that thing. I take the dog for a walk every night and do about 3 Ks minimum. Rain, hail or shine through sludge and muck and long grass. It's fantastic, really good. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, cruising's great, to put it that way.
No, that's great. Thanks, Mel. And equipment, you have to take your own equipment, don't you? Like if you use a horse.
You can organise it. The ship will organise it. You can hire it through the ship.
There's also an organisation operates worldwide called Special Needs at Sea. So if the ship won't do it, Special Needs at Sea will, and they operate in virtually every cruise port in the world.
Yeah. Just a warning, the Baytech suffers the same problem with the battery. You can get a special travel battery, but it doesn't give you the same distance. But yeah, I got stung when I got back here because we loaded in Melbourne and got off in Sydney and then couldn't bring the thing home. So, you know, had to organise it through the post, believe it or not.
And
anyway,
while we're on batteries too, the thing we were talking about before is not universal. It's each airline's interpretation of the IATA rules. So you might have your 15 amp hour battery and successfully cart it on 6 or 7 airlines. You get to the last one in your trip. If that happened to be Hawaiian Airlines, for example, they're one airline that is recalcitrant, to be polite. You'll run into a problem and you'll be shipping the battery.
And it's not just the airline differences. It depends on the station. In other words, the airport.
Yep.
If you come in on the same airline and try and fly out on the same airline, depending on who books you in, as to whether they'll let it through or not. So lithium-ion batteries for travel by air are very prone to problems.
They're supposedly be able to book ahead and organise it so that they, you know, you find out whether they will accept it and you get it approved.
Yeah, but then you hit the check-in person who doesn't know anything about that and won't follow it up, and they just refuse to take it.
Sound like voice of experience.
Yeah.
No, it's just when I was designing my wheelchair, I went through all this with the airlines, and my wife worked for United Airlines, so it was just fraught with difficulty.
For the more technical minded, you can have as many approvals as you like, but if you don't absolutely insist that it ends up in the special instructions section of what's called PNR, which is the passenger name record, then your piece of paper is useless. So all best intentions, unless it ends up on that particular PNR, you will end up in strife sooner or later.
So who's meant to know
it's in the PNR and it doesn't get there.
No, it still doesn't, but it's got more hope. If it's not in the PNR, you've got no hope. If it's in the PNR, you've got some hope.
Yeah.
The PNR is something that your travel agent, if they're worth their salt, make sure is correct.
Should know, yep.
Should know. And if they don't know, then you tell them, make sure it's in, and I've forgotten this particular section category that it should be in. It needs to be in that PNR record in that special category where it's then, because that's the only record that travels throughout the entire system.
Basically, if your travel agent doesn't know how to do that on a PNR,
find another one.
Change travel agents.
Hey, can you help me out? What does PNR stand for? What does it mean?
Passenger name record.
Okay.
That is the thing. When you book a ticket, you know that funny 6-digit code you get?
I'm going to say yes, but I don't know.
Okay. Whenever you make an airline booking, you get a 6-digit alphanumeric code, which is called the relock code. That is the thing that ties it to the PNR, which is the passenger name record, within the worldwide system that they call the GDS. And that is the thing that goes with that booking right throughout the booking. So if you book multi-sectors on your flights and all the rest, they're all still tied together by that same record. It's where if you go and book multi-sectors that are on the different, that are not tied together, that's when you start to get into trouble. And for what it's worth, especially for people with a disability, never ever book sectors that are separate. So if you're flying from here to New York, for instance, you don't book here to Los Angeles and then Los Angeles to New York. You book straight through to New York and you book your home sector all the way home, because that then does is give you all of the domestic sectors as part of your international thing, so you're not paying $25 per item of luggage, especially in America. It's covered by your international allowance, and that catches a lot of people out. They think they're being clever by getting cheaper segment tickets, but they pay about twice as much more in domestic baggage charges.
Does that make sense to you? Okay.
Now, with the package there, Bill, when I've travelled there, I just said it was medical equipment and they waived it. Is that changed?
You'll get your medical equipment on some airlines, but you'll only get one item, not necessarily. Some people have 2 or 3 items. But
Oh,
it's
yeah, I
your,
just packed it on the one bag, yeah. Like, it
yeah,
wasn't
but it's your
medical,
other
I just said
bags.
that, Yeah.
So if you're going to
Oh, yeah,
America
okay,
with two bags and you're doing 2
Yeah.
domestic flights internally, 25 by 4, suddenly there's an extra $100 in baggage charges.
Yeah.
Andy?
You've got to check all that.
The other thing is,
All experience.
if you have all your medical equipment in one bag that you check on, that's the one you're going to lose.
Yeah, I was thinking that myself. Don't lose that thing.
That's why
But
cruising's so
I
good.
use medical very loosely, but let's turn this more positive. These are only on very odd circumstances. Like the majority of the time, it goes smoothly, guys. So
Certainly.
don't worry. Yeah.
It is if you
And,
avoid certain airports. If you go through LA often enough, you're going to lose something.
Yeah.
Probably a numbers game.
No, on LA, I think it's just, whose bag will we throw in the tip today?
Yeah, an intellectual game.
Whose bag do we take home?
So with the cruise, sorry, I've forgotten the gentleman's name. What
Mel.
were the cruises that you did? What was it? Because I've been on Cunard. I went on that 2 years ago.
Oh,
The
no.
QE.
Well, I went on the COVID carrier one, Princess.
Oh, COVID. Oh, no.
No, look, if you go cruising after this, it's going to be the cleanest ships alive, I think,
Yeah.
and you'll all be really safe. But
There'll be no
yeah,
buffets now. Buffets.
no, that's good. But
We cruised on, our first cruise was on a Star Line out of Hong Kong, but came down to Australia during SARS. That was brilliant. Absolutely perfect.
Oh,
But we then booked my wife and daughter went on P&O. That was good. But wife and I went on a 30-day one with the inaugural cruise with Cunard.
Oh, yeah.
We call that the ship of the dead, because the doctor, every second table had antibiotics. Everybody had what they called the Cunard cough. My wife got that and was hospitalised in Singapore. And also, it's a mycoplasma. They wouldn't do the testing. The doctor just handed out antibiotics. It was a sick ship, but they wouldn't admit it. And the average age on Cunard was 71. And I'm talking average age. It was not a fun trip. We pulled into freight terminals. So even though I could get on and off the ship, because I couldn't independently get on and off a bus, I couldn't get out. So there were only a couple of ports where I was actually able to go anywhere. And that
Which astounds you, really, doesn't it? When you think of the age of the clientele, they probably do accessibility worse than anyone.
Yep. And I was on a ship with there were a total of 22 wheelchairs on that cruise, and
wow,
some of them were mobile enough to get onto the bus, so they were able to go out. But most of us got refunds because they had they'd notified us that some of the stops would not be accessible because they were not docking. So you'd have to be able to get on and off the tenders, which we accepted. But nobody warned us that even in Hong Kong, we pulled into a container terminal, and I couldn't get off at Hong Kong. I'd arranged for a business meeting in China. I couldn't get off there. The guy had turned up to meet me at the gate. He was a 1.5 mile away. and we could not get between the two. Beware of.
So did this ship stop in Wuhan in late 2019? Is this where you got that cough you delivered from?
This was way back. This was the inaugural cruise for Cunard back in 2010.
Okay.
Now that was what I meant about working ports. You've got to find out which ones they are, and they've got a responsibility to tell you that. And then you plan ahead from there and see if you can get your own. If someone comes down and picks you up, you're fine. You can go to any of those working ports. They've got to get a permit. They have permits to come in and do it. The same with the taxi or whatever, but yeah, you just can't get off yourself.
We couldn't get a taxi, and we ended it in Singapore, and they were even working out whether we could get off at Singapore.
Yeah, you've got to organise it beforehand so they know you're coming and that's all booked, and then they can get in.
But no, it was the biggest schmozzle that we've ever come across, and it was a very sick ship. And when my wife went to the hospital at Singapore, they said, "Have you just got off a cruise liner?" And she said, "Yes." And they said, "Is it Cunard?" And she said, "Yes." And they said, "Oh, we know what you've got."
Yeah.
The Cunard cough.
There is on those stories, there's another lesson to bear in mind, even on places like the Alaskan Cruise, which is a very accessible cruise. Do not do it from mid-July to the end of August, though, which is the American-Canadian school holidays. If you go outside that time, there are only 4 ships in any port at a time, so you're always guaranteed of tying up alongside, easy access. If you go mid-July to the end of August, there are 7 ships normally in each of the port because it's peak season, and you're almost guaranteed you'll have at least 1 or 2 tender stops, even on that cruise. So your timing and knowing the cruise market is important to book. And who was it had been to Alaska? Was that you, Mel?
Yeah.
What time do you go?
I can't really remember. It was one of the first we did, but I know then we could go on tenders, and that was with Caribbean or whatever they call it. But and that was a really good cruise, and they just sort of carried us on and off the tenders, which was fantastic because I went everywhere.
I prefer outside that period because you've been to Skagway and the other ports of call on there. They can get horrendously busy and difficult to manoeuvre around when there's too many tourists. Whereas if there's only 4 ships and thing, I won't say it's pleasant, but it's better than 7 ships.
Yeah, I think it was about August, September, but I can't remember. I'd have to look it up.
It's knowing the market, and again, talking to someone who knows the destinations to pick that shoulder season, not necessarily the peak season.
Yeah, it's very hard to get wheelchair accessible cabins though too, because we booked on the Princess cruise out of LA, which hopefully I don't lose anything, but I don't think it'll go ahead. That's in 2022 in January. And
that should go ahead.
Well, hopefully it does. But yeah, when you go to so many different ports, it's really hard to tie it all in together. But
yeah, it is. The longer the cruise, the harder it gets.
Yeah. Yeah, that's where we found if we even in Russia, you couldn't go out at night unless you had an organised trip, and that had to be planned beforehand, or you go with an organised one through Princess. But a lot of them don't include wheelchair access, so you've got to do your own and have your own guides and whatever.
Royal Caribbean are probably better than most of them at that because they've got a dedicated accessibility group that continually. He's been out here. I've had Ron Petit's his name. He's the vice president that looks after accessibility. He's been out here looking for accessible options. He's been to Moonlit Sanctuary, for instance, talking about incorporating that into the Royal Caribbean's schedule. He's been and had a look at the Eagle. So Royal Caribbean take it seriously. I'm not sure whether the others take it quite as seriously as they do.
Princess does. They do a pretty good job.
They do a
But
pretty
it's
good.
educating them all the time. Yeah,
Yeah.
we sort of taught them quite a bit.
I did a taster cruise 2 years ago, so just before COVID hit and everything, and we went to Launceston, like Tassie, and then to Sydney. So it was a taster, but yeah, you could get off the ship, you know, and do tours, but they weren't accessible, so we couldn't do that. But they did have an accessible, or they had a bus with a hoist or something that, yeah. So we got into Launceston. But there was a hiccup with us getting back. They had a school bus, I think, that was going to get us back. But there was some hiccup. But the staff or the volunteers were there with us, you know, waiting for us to get on an accessible bus to come back to the ship. And we couldn't push back to the ship because of, like the port thing or I think you were explaining it a bit. You've got to, have something to get into the port again. So that was a bit of a hiccup, as well as, not having accessible tours. We weren't able to, they didn't, cater for that.
Yeah, well, the same. I did the same sort of thing in Lima, and it was terrible. It was a shocking port, and I got off. But then, you know, all the tours, organised tours, buses were all coming back in, and I'm at the port gates in the dark at night trying to get back in there, and I couldn't. And that was pretty hairy. But so you've got to try and plan before.
And I found with the tuna. Sorry.
No, finish off, Karen.
Yeah, no, I was going to say that on the Cunard, the carpet was really, really lush, and trying to push on it, it was really hard. And before I was getting on, we were there, and actually there was a guy, I think he's with the Geelong Spy group. I happened to see him, and he said to me, "Oh, the carpet's really thick on the ship." And I thought, I wish I'd have known that beforehand. But yeah, it was like really hard pushing.
Yeah, I found that with Cunard too. And the other thing with Cunard is the beds were very high.
Yep. Well, they said to me, that was an issue with me, and they said what you could do, which I didn't know, that you can hire a bed, or not hire it, you let Cunard know and they'll organise an adjustable bed. But I didn't know that. So I got there and, I'm 4'11" and the beds, but anyway, we managed to get a lower mattress and they worked it out. It wasn't perfect, but
that's great. They do what they can, can't they? So
exactly. They did what they could.
And that's a thing. Like if you've got a question, don't just assume that's it. You got to ask and speak to them about what options there might be available. Well, that goes to any sort of travel that you do. You've got to speak up, and most of the time, they'll do what they can. Yeah. So it's past 4 o'clock now. I'm happy to stay around, but for those that want to go, I think if we talk for the next 10 minutes just about international destinations, or if anyone's got any questions, if they're thinking about traveling to specific areas around the world, a lot of places people think aren't accessible, and they probably aren't, but it doesn't mean you still can't go there. So just wondering if anyone's want to travel to a specific area and they've got some questions.
Well, I mean, one of the places I'd like to go, and it's all out of our control, is like New York. I'd love to go, and America, like places, but with everything that's happening in America, like it's out of our, it's like, when will things, it's like,
actually, Bill, is that, no, I was just going to ask Bill, I think international travel has been postponed or until, when's the,
it's been pushed back to the 28th of March, but realistically, that's not going to happen either.
No. We're not going to be able to travel internationally at least until the end of March. But coming out of that, I mean, is there any?
It depends what the world gets together and what the governments get together in terms of the vaccine. I'd say if the vaccine becomes effective, then all bets are off and travel will be back on. it's a question of how effective that's going to be and what rules will be associated around that. I can see us going back to the old yellow card. If anyone's old enough to remember the old yellow vaccination card, I give them a few nods.
Yeah.
In fact, that yellow card is still used for yellow fever. I've still got one here from.
I still have mine.
For Brazil.
Yeah, for Brazil. When I got back from Brazil, I had to have proof of the yellow fever vaccination. So I think we're going to go back to that. And if it's effective and people accept that you can travel with that thing and come back without quarantine, it might be back on.
And they're talking about a possible bubble with New Zealand. So we might be able to travel. I mean, that hasn't happened, but it may happen where we can go to Tasmania, New Zealand, and they can come here.
Well, they can come here now, we just can't go. We just can't go there.
Yeah.
Well, we can if you want to quarantine for a fortnight.
Yeah.
Which is not practical.
Just on that quarantine there, Bill, have you found any individuals with a disability that have had to quarantine and how they would go about that to organise?
I know 3 that have come back in that they've been catered for successfully on their return. So they find an accessible room and it seemed to work fairly well. I haven't heard any real complaints other than people wearing out carpets with their tyres going backwards and forwards doing nothing all day. But no, they seem to have that under control. So they're geared up for that.
Yeah. And are you allowed to receive packages while in quarantine?
I believe so.
Yeah, just regarding continents, etc.
Yeah. That was all either packages sent in or orders placed and chemists delivered, from what I get.
Yeah.
Has anyone got any questions about international destinations or just any other questions at all?
Yeah, can I just ask a question? It's really on a practical level. With places like London or around England, how accessible is it? I just imagine a lot of cobblestones and.
No, London's pretty good. London, the city of London is fairly good, so you can push without any issues down both sides of the Thames, down as far as the Millennium Bridge. Then I would suggest you cross to the opposite side to Parliament House at the Millennium Bridge, and there's a lift from the river level up to the bridge level on that side. It's ramped on the other. You can continue down the other side without any issues right up to the Tower Bridge and across the Tower Bridge and back to the Tower of London. The bus service is extremely good in terms of level entry into the bottom level of the double deckers all over London. The tube can be a problem because the tube is old. However, there are detailed tube maps available that detail which other wheelchair interchange stations to swap tube bits. I should hasten to add that Visit England are probably the world leaders in accessible tourism, and they've put a huge effort into coming up with accessible itineraries and destinations. They've got 5 regions that are featured as being accessible. There are itineraries available everywhere. If you go to the Visit England website, you'll find all of that. So places like Bath and co are destinations. Scotland did a lot in the lead up to the Commonwealth Games as well. So there's full sets of accessible itineraries for Edinburgh and Glasgow.
And those black cabs are accessible, majority of them?
For the majority of them. Now, gigantic powered wheelchairs, probably not. But if you're a manual wheelchair user or using a little assistance device, any black cab is accessible. Just bear in mind there are no seatbelts in those black cabs for those that have taken, so you're hanging on for grim death. But yeah, England's pretty good.
Okay.
Like parts of Europe, Germany, the Netherlands in particular, closely followed by Austria. For those that don't know, Vienna ripped up all of its cobblestones and replaced them with flat cobblestones that look like cobblestones but aren't, for accessibility. So Europe is way ahead of us out here.
Oh, okay.
Now there are parts of it not, parts of Greece aren't, although they've just put a lift up to the Acropolis. I'm not sure whether you saw the article on that the other day.
Yeah, that's good, isn't it?
Yeah, Venice have done a lot of work on. There's even an accessible gondola in Venice now.
Rome is not all that great.
No, Rome's not that good.
That's
Italy-
hard push, isn't it? The 7 hills of Rome.
Italy generally is
The footpaths aren't wide enough.
nah, yeah, and there's no
Yeah.
bloody curb cuts when you've got some idiot parks up on the curbs and so on. So
The trains are good though.
Exactly.
yeah, one of the worst cities, which is a shame, is Paris. Paris just don't give a continental.
That's the French.
Yeah, they just don't care.
But
I was
travelling in Italy
Venice
by
last
train
year,
is really
and,
good.
And to that point, the gondolas, they're very, even if there's many people that will assist you there as well, that operate they tie on the rope and that. They're very, very helpful.
So trains are generally pretty good, but if you're in the Netherlands, be aware that you've got to give 24 hours notice or you'll turn up to the station and the lift that's required to get you onto the train will still be chained to the fence. And no one will have a key.
Oh, wow.
So that's got to be booked at least 24 hours in advance. Once you're on, you're okay. They know about you and you'll be met at each intermediate stop and so on. It's just, don't just show up and expect to get on a train.
Once you're on, you're okay. I've heard that before with hotel rooms. You know, once you get into the room, you're fine. But getting into the room, there's 2 steps or something like that.
In an elevator. It doesn't work.
In an elevator or, whatever.
So yeah, Europe's generally pretty good. America is pretty good in parts because they've had the ADA there for 30 years.
In parts.
But disabled taxis in America vary a huge amount.
Oh, a huge amount.
Some places are good, some places are atrocious.
The things that we use more often than taxis is actually the jumbo shuttles, because most of the jumbo shuttles have got a jumbo shuttle with either a ramp or lift into it, and they're more reliable. If you book an accessible jumbo shuttle, that's what you get. Plenty of headroom, plenty of manoeuvring room to get into and out of it as well.
Now, another item I saw on the news the other night was that half the black cabs in London have been taken off the road because of COVID, and they don't know how many more will get back on once COVID is clear because of the problems with Uber. It's going to be
There's paddocks full of them.
Yeah.
This is going to be something that's going to affect us considerably, where taxi services and whatever else that are set up in cities are accessible, but when these Uber systems come in and knock the taxis out, they are not going to be accessible.
What about any other destinations?
Ride sharing is not going to be favourable to us.
No.
But if there's demand there, another market will form. So hopefully that happens quick.
Look, I was working for a month in Atlanta, and there was demand there, but the wheelchair taxis, you had to book 4 hours ahead, and I was waiting up to 3 hours for them to turn up.
Yeah.
So, and there was tons of demand, but supply was not good.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Any other destinations people want to talk about?
Good for today.
Yeah. So pretty much we'll finish off. But pretty much, if there's any destination you want to go, you can do it. Even if places aren't accessible, you just got to do your planning and put like a plan B in place. If you want to organise equipment, carers overseas, you can do that. You just got to sort of know who to speak to. Bill, if you got any major questions like that, or you want Bill to help you organise a trip or anything like that, just get in touch with him or give us a call. We can ask our network if anyone's been to a particular place. We talk about Bali and Southeast Asia not being accessible. if you go to places like that, knowing that it's not accessible, you'll have a great time, because what you do is you prepare for it. You put things in place for it.
And I'd have to say, when you're dealing with Asia, I will just tell you a very quick, funny anecdote. We had a quad who was hell-bent on seeing the Coochie tunnels in Vietnam. Now, there's no organised accessible tour to the Coochie tunnels. But we finally got him out there, believe it or not, in a furniture van, because it was the only vehicle that had a lift at the back. So
That's awesome.
some things may not be traditionally doable, but
As long as you don't mind.
they're doable if you've got, you know.
Yeah, I agree.
We're telling little funny anecdotes. You should talk, Naz, about your one in Bali, how the shower didn't work and how you retrofitted it.
Yeah.
I can show you photos as well, pretty much. I learned this from going away with rugby and all that sort of stuff, because places you go aren't accessible. You know, there's just a bathtub. There's no shower, or if there is, you can't get into it because it's too small, or there's a step into it. So in Bali, what we've done, and I wish I could find the photo for you. If I had time, I would. But we just went to like the Bali version of Bunnings and bought like a hose, like a garden hose, clamped that to the hand basin, and that was my shower. And the water would go into, lucky there was a drain inside the floor, and the water would go down there, and it worked fantastically. I was happy, you know, as long as you can have a shower, because you get disappointed. You go somewhere and you think it's going to be accessible shower, and it's not. Instead of complaining or, you know, just
you
being
just
frustrated all the time, you find solutions.
you just have to adjust, adapt, and overcome.
You do, yeah. And if it means you flood the room, you flood the room.
That's on them.
Yeah.
Then you get.
So no worries out of the question. So next time, I'll make sure I show you the photo of what we've done to this property, to this hotel room, and it worked fantastically.
Very good.
Well done.
All right. Well, if there's no other questions, we'll leave it there. Thanks for everyone for joining, especially you, Bill, for your.
Pleasure.
Thank you, Bill.
Yeah,
Thank you, Bill. That's great.
I haven't had much opportunity this year to talk travel.
Well, during the last few months. Yeah. But really appreciate it. Everyone would have got like a Word document I sent with the invitation. I just put some notes together regarding planning, and, you know, just for people to jot down ideas. For January, I think we'll do another Zoom. And for February, I did put something in there for February as a lunch catch up. Gerard's got a mate. Gerard's got a mate. I can't remember. I can't say the name, but this vineyard. Might make some inquiries to head out there, Gerard, in February. Just trying to think of the name, but it's on that Word document that I sent out.
Okay,
how do people feel about that if we organise that for February?
No, good.
I'd go. Sounds interesting.
Yeah, I'll make some inquiries and find out when the restaurant's on. Because it's not on every day.
No, it's not. I had a look at the website, and I've got the link and all that on that Word document.
Yep.
Or if anyone wants to have a look and do a bit of research on where we can go, there's some really good options on there. What we want to do in 2021. So if we add some dates to it, as in, you know, what we want to do in March, April, go ahead and do it.
Okay.
Did you list the Mafra Car Museum as well?
I saw that, yeah. So I've got details on there as well. That's open, I can't remember now. Some of them weren't open every day, but a few options there.
Good.
All right, so thanks again for everyone joining us. If you've got a moment, have a look at that Word document that I sent out, and just make some comments or make some suggestions if you're happy to do that. Yeah, because, you know, we need contributions and ideas from you guys to organise what we want to do.
Okay.
Well, have a great weekend, everyone, and I'll send an email with an update about what we've done today, and see you guys in January.
Lovely.
Okay.
Bye, everybody.
Have a good Christmas.
Okay,
Yeah.
bye.
All the best.
Bye all.
That's it.